A poor waitress was fired for feeding a hungry child, didn't know her new CEO was watching, and changed everything. The clatter of plates and the murmur of evening diners filled the Riverstone Grill, a sleek restaurant nestled in the heart of Manhattan. The dim lights reflected off polished glass and silverware, and servers weaved between tables with practiced ease. Lily Harper wiped her hands on her apron and glanced at the clock. Her shift was almost over. She was tired, her feet ached, and her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she knew her son back home was still waiting for dinner. Rent was overdue. She had not eaten since morning. As she carried a tray of half-finished dishes toward the kitchen, something caught her eye through the window near the entrance. A boy, no older than 6, stood pressed against the glass, his coat too thin for the February cold. His cheeks were red from wind, and his eyes locked onto a plate of untouched pasta left behind by a customer. Lily slowed. She glanced around. The manager was in the back, arguing with the chef. The hostess was busy on the phone. She walked toward the kitchen, set down the tray, then paused beside the line where the food was plated. One bowl of fresh chicken soup sat under the heat lamp, ready to be trashed after a canceled order. She made her choice. Sliding the bowl onto a tray, she added a bread roll and a napkin, then slipped out the side door into the cold. "Hey," she said softly, crouching beside the boy. "You hungry, buddy?" The boy nodded. "Here," she said, placing the tray on the bench nearby. "No one has to know. Eat slow, okay? It's hot." The boy's eyes widened. He whispered, "Thank you," and picked up the spoon with trembling fingers. Behind her, the restaurant door slammed open. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" barked a voice. Lily turned slowly. Her manager, Carl, stormed toward her, face red. His eyes flicked from the soup to the boy, then back to Lily. "That's theft, Harper. You just gave away food." "It was going to be thrown out," Lily said, standing her ground. "He's a child. He hasn't eaten all day. Not your call. You're done here. Hand in your apron and get out." Lily's breath caught. Around them, a few diners who had come out for a smoke stood frozen. The boy had stopped eating, his spoon halfway to his mouth. Lily glanced at him, then back at Carl. She untied her apron with trembling fingers, folded it neatly and placed it in his hands. "He needed it more than I needed this job," she said, her voice breaking. Carl turned and walked back inside. The door slammed again, and the cold swallowed her. Lily knelt and gently picked up the tray. "It's okay, sweetie, you can finish." The boy looked unsure. From a table near the window, a man had been watching the whole thing unfold. Dressed simply in jeans and a coat, he looked like an ordinary customer. But Daniel Cole wasn't ordinary. As the heir to the Donovan family restaurant empire, he had returned from overseas to quietly audit their struggling branches, starting with Riverstone Grill. He had seen everything. The manager's reaction, the way Lily had risked her job, the boy's hollow eyes. He sipped his coffee and narrowed his gaze. Not many people would sacrifice their only income for someone else's dignity, especially not someone who looked like they had very little left themselves. Daniel stood, left a tip on the table, and exited out the back. He had seen enough. And for the first time since arriving back in New York, something stirred in him, an idea, and maybe a mission. Daniel Cole sat alone in the back seat of a black SUV as it glided through the city streets, rain streaking down the windows. The silence inside the vehicle gave him space to think, space he rarely allowed himself. He held his phone loosely in one hand, replaying the video captured by a small button camera hidden on the lapel of his coat. It showed a blonde waitress crouching beside a hungry child in the cold, offering him a bowl of soup. The expression on her face wasn't pity. It was something more powerful, empathy, raw and unguarded. He paused the video, zooming in on her eyes, tired, yes, but full of something he had not seen in a long time, courage. Daniel had returned to New York 3 weeks earlier, summoned by his father, Richard Cole, founder and chairman of the Donovan Hospitality Group. The family business had grown into a nationwide restaurant chain, but lately, public image and internal morale were crumbling. Richard believed it was time for next-generation leadership. So Daniel had agreed, on one condition: let him start from the ground without anyone knowing who he was. No press release, no title flaunting, just a man observing the system from inside. His task: visit anonymous locations, gauge staff behavior, test leadership integrity, and find people who still carried the company's founding spirit: compassion, community, and care. Tonight had given him his clearest result yet. He looked again at the paused frame of Lily Harper. The name tag on her uniform was partially visible in the corner of the video. He replayed the scene once more, this time listening to her trembling voice. "He's a child. He hasn't eaten all day." Daniel leaned back in his seat, eyes narrowing. It had not been a staged moment. No cameras, no audience, just instinct. His driver spoke. "Sir, where to?" Daniel glanced out the window, then said quietly, "Home." Back at his penthouse overlooking Central Park, Daniel shed his coat and sank into a leather armchair. The space was elegant but impersonal, more hotel than home. The kind of life he had built abroad, efficient, detached. He poured a glass of water, then sat at his desk, opening his laptop. With a few keystrokes, he accessed the internal employee directory. Harper, Lily, age 26, hired 9 months ago. Terminated, effective immediately, single mother, lives in a 1-bedroom walk-up in Queens, no college degree, no disciplinary record. Until today, Daniel leaned back, fingertips pressed together. Why did this matter to him? He had watched countless people get fired, let go, pushed aside by policy or bureaucracy. That was business, that was structure. But this had felt wrong, deeply wrong. And she had not begged for her job, had not cried or pleaded. She had stood tall, even in humiliation, because she knew she had done the right thing. Daniel exhaled slowly. Maybe she had not just reminded him of the company's forgotten value. Maybe she had reminded him of who he used to be, before money made everything calculated. He closed the laptop. It was time to meet Lily Harper again, but not as Daniel Cole, executive heir to a restaurant empire, as someone real, someone she could trust. The smell of frying oil and burnt toast lingered in the air as Daniel stepped into a small diner tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop on the quieter side of Brooklyn. The neon sign buzzed faintly. Sunny Spoon, half lit and blinking as if it too was struggling to stay open. The diner was nearly empty, save for a few old-timers nursing coffee and the occasional takeout order. The air was thick with grease and faint jazz playing on a broken speaker. Daniel scanned the room until his eyes landed on her. Lily Harper moved behind the counter in a plain white apron, her blonde hair tied in a loose bun. She looked tired, her cheeks slightly hollow, her uniform 2 sizes too large, but there was still a fire in her posture. She was wiping down a table with focused intensity, unaware that anyone was watching. He waited until she passed near the register, then approached with a soft smile. "Excuse me," he said, voice casual. "I was told someone here might be able to help with a community food project." Lily looked up. Her eyes narrowed slightly, brows furrowing in faint recognition. "Have we met?" Daniel gave a small shrug. "I was at Riverstone the night you got fired." Her shoulders tensed. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he added quickly. I saw what you did, and it stuck with me." Lily leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "Most people pretended not to see anything." "I didn't," Daniel said. There was a pause between them, heavy with the kind of unspoken weight only strangers who have seen each other at their lowest can share. Daniel extended his hand. "I'm Danny. I work freelance in food and community engagement. I help design grassroots meal programs, low-cost food access, that sort of thing." Lily didn't take his hand. "So, what, you want me to join your project out of pity?" "No," he said, calm and steady. "I want you involved because you didn't wait for permission to do what was right. That kind of instinct can't be trained." She hesitated. "You're offering me a job because you saw me feed a hungry kid?" Daniel shook his head. "I'm offering you a chance because you acted when others didn't." Another pause. Lily bit the inside of her cheek, studying him. But what kind of project? We're building a test model restaurant. Simple, clean meals for underprivileged communities. Think pay what you can, but built on dignity, not charity. We need people who get it. And you think I get it? I know you do. She exhaled slowly. What's the catch? No catch, Daniel said. We'll start with a 30-day trial. If it doesn't work, no hard feelings. Lily looked down at the counter, then back up. I have a son. I know, Daniel replied gently. We can work around your hours. I'll make sure there's childcare available at the site. That caught her off guard. Her expression softened, just slightly. Where do we start? Daniel smiled. With breakfast. Come by tomorrow morning. There's a community space in Flatbush we're repurposing. She stared at him a moment longer, as if trying to read between the lines of what he wasn't saying. Then finally, she nodded. Okay, she said. 30 days. Daniel turned to leave, but paused at the door. By the way, you've got a pretty terrible boss here. You ever think of running a place of your own? Lily smirked despite herself. Only in my dreams. Good, Daniel said, because we're going to build one. She watched him walk out into the Brooklyn dusk, the doorbell chiming softly behind him. She still did not know his last name. And Daniel? He walked away, knowing full well he was in deeper than he had intended. From a test project to something he hadn't expected to feel again. Hope. The sun rose slowly over Flatbush, spilling golden light through the large windows of a former rec center now repurposed into something new, the community table. The name was painted in warm letters above the door, below a hand-drawn mural of people gathered at a long, shared table. Inside, Lily stood at the center of the kitchen, clipboard in hand, barking instructions with the precision of someone who had worked under pressure her whole life. Keep the rice warm, not mushy, she said, turning to a volunteer. And no mystery sauce, just the basics, real food, no surprises. Dozens of people moved around her, setting tables, checking supplies. The place buzzed with energy, nervous but excited. Daniel arrived early, dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, sleeves rolled. He did not speak much that morning. He watched. This was Lily's space now, and she owned it. By noon, a line had already formed outside. Homeless veterans, single mothers with toddlers, elderly folks carrying plastic grocery bags. Lily greeted each one with a smile, never rushing, never judging. You're welcome here, she said over and over. You matter. Inside, families sat at communal tables eating lentil stew, cornbread, and sliced apples. Children laughed. For some, it was their first hot meal in days. A local reporter from the Brooklyn Voice showed up with a notebook and a camera. I heard there's a waitress running a restaurant that feeds people with dignity, she said. Lily blinked. I'm not running anything, just trying to do what I wish someone had done for my family. The article that came out the next day went viral across the borough. The community table, where kindness is on the menu. Daniel sat at his apartment late that night, scrolling through the piece. A photo showed Lily, crouching to tie the shoe of a boy who had come in without parents. Her expression was calm, focused, and fiercely gentle. He closed his laptop and opened another window, a hospital billing system. A few strokes of the keyboard, a quiet call to a finance administrator, and it was done. The next morning, Lily received a call from Queens Memorial. Your mother's outstanding balance has been cleared, the woman on the line said. Someone made an anonymous payment. Everything is taken care of. Lily stood frozen in the community kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. She whispered, What? Would you like to leave a thank you message for the donor? Lily swallowed hard. I don't know who to thank. She ended the call. Staring at the walls of her tiny office, her heart was racing. That night, she pulled Daniel aside after the last table was cleared and the floor mopped. I don't know who paid my mom's bills, she said carefully, but I think someone's looking out for me. Daniel didn't meet her eyes. He just nodded once. Sounds like you've got a guardian angel, Lily chuckled. Maybe. He watched her walk away, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the dining room. He had meant for this to be a test project, an idea, a strategy, a report. But Lily had turned it into a heartbeat, and he could not help but feel pulled into its rhythm. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. He had seen real leadership before, in boardrooms and on global stages, but here, in a kitchen that still smelled faintly of old paint and hope, he saw something different. He saw a woman who had once lost everything, now building something that could not be taken away. And he was falling for her, quietly, carefully, and completely. The sound of clinking dishes and soft laughter filled the hall of the community table, but Daniel could feel the tension before he even stepped inside. His phone buzzed non-stop in his pocket, and the last message he received had made his stomach drop. Local heroine's partner, revealed as heir to corporate empire. A reporter from a food blog had come by to profile the project, harmless enough, until she ran a background check on Danny, the community marketing guy. The blog exploded within hours. Daniel Cole, son of Richard Cole, the billionaire behind Donovan Holdings, which owned Riverstone Grill and over 100 other upscale restaurants, was not who he had claimed to be. And he had not told Lily. He walked slowly into the kitchen. She was waiting for him. Her back was straight, hands folded tightly in front of her. Her cheeks were flushed, not from cooking, but from fury. She looked like someone who had been punched. She held up her phone, the headline glowing on the screen. "Is it true?" Daniel didn't lie. "Yes." "You watched me get fired," she said, voice trembling. "You saw me lose my job, and you just sat there. I wasn't in a position. You were in a position. You're the son of the man who owns the damn place," she snapped, her voice cracking. Daniel took a slow step forward. "Lily, I didn't come into this planning to lie. I came in undercover to see how the company was failing people, failing employees like you." "And then what?" she asked. "You decided I was worth helping because I passed some test?" He flinched. "You knew how much I hate being treated like a project," she continued. "You said this was about dignity, about people being seen, and you were hiding who you were the whole time." Daniel had no defense, no explanation that would make it right. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I know," he said, voice low. "I should have told you, but I was scared." "Scared of what?" "Of what you'd think of me if you knew who I really was." She stared at him, blinking fast. "You mean if I knew you were rich?" "No," he said. "If you knew I was part of the same system that hurt you." Silence settled like a fog between them. Lily pulled off her apron. "I can't do this. Not with you. Not here. Please. I'm done." She walked past him, grabbing her bag and coat without looking back. Daniel stood in the middle of the kitchen, the echo of her departure loud in his ears. He didn't follow. Outside, the sun dipped behind the rooftops, and the once buzzing community table grew quiet. Over the next few days, news of Daniel's identity spread further. Some painted him as a secret benefactor, others as a manipulative fraud. Social media exploded in debate. But another video surfaced too. A customer who had been outside Riverstone Grill that night had posted a clip, Lily kneeling beside the hungry boy, handing him food. Her voice could be heard clearly. "It's okay, sweetheart. You deserve to eat." The video went viral. The compassion in her eyes, the calm in her voice. It struck people. Thousands commented, arguing that whatever Daniel's motives, the heart of the project had always been hers. Still, Lily stayed silent. She avoided reporters, declined interviews. She returned to her old job at Sunny Spoon. She could not bring herself to step foot in the community table again. As for Daniel, he remained at the project, but something had changed. He stopped speaking at events. He turned down photo ops. The sparkle of possibility that had once glowed in his chest had dimmed. He had built something honest, but he had built it on a lie, and now, without Lily, it felt empty. The polished walls of Donovan Holdings' executive boardroom reflected nothing of the storm brewing inside. 12 directors sat in tailored suits around a long oak table, their faces ranging from indifferent to quietly furious. The tension hummed beneath the soft clinks of water glasses and shuffling papers. The air was still, but sharp. At the head of the table, Daniel Cole sat with his hands folded, his spine straight and shoulders squared. His expression was calm, but there was steel behind his eyes. Across from him, Mark Prescott leaned back comfortably, adjusting his cufflinks with slow, deliberate confidence. The smugness on his face was barely concealed. He had waited for this. A senior VP of operations with a reputation for ruthless efficiency, Mark had always eyed the strategic director position like a throne that had been wrongly inherited. He watched with disdain as Daniel returned from abroad months ago, unannounced and unconventional, rejecting suits and spreadsheets for sneakers and food drives. He had mocked Daniel's decision to go undercover, and now he had the ammunition he needed. "I believe it's clear," Mark said, tapping a sleek tablet in front of him. "Mr. Cole embedded himself in our business under false pretenses, manipulated a vulnerable employee, and used a community initiative as a public relations stunt. The press spun it into a charity miracle. But let's call it what it is: damage control dressed as virtue." Several board members exchanged glances. One murmured under his breath, another adjusted her glasses, frowning. Daniel lifted his head slowly. His voice was quiet, but carried across the room. "I never intended to deceive the board or the public. My goal was to assess our brand at its most human level, unfiltered, unpolished. And what I found was what we had lost." Mark let out a scoffing breath, spreading his hands. "And it just happened to involve a pretty waitress in a conveniently viral video." Daniel's jaw tensed. "She's not a PR move," he said evenly, "and she's not just a waitress." He stood slowly, placing both palms flat on the polished wood. "Lily Harper is the reason the community table exists. Her instinct, her courage, her commitment. None of this would have happened without her. If anyone built something worth noticing, it was her." Mark leaned back further, arms crossing. "Then why is she gone?" Daniel didn't flinch. "Because I failed her," he said, voice low and honest. "I should have told her the truth. I should have trusted her with my real name, my real title, the same way she trusted me with everything she had." The boardroom fell silent. A few directors shifted in their seats, uncomfortable now, not from scandal, but from the rare sight of raw accountability. Daniel looked around the table. "I take full responsibility for that mistake, but if this board is looking for someone to blame, blame me. Do not reduce her to a headline. She was never a tool. She was the compass." His words hung in the air. The chairman, an older man with white hair and a tired face, finally spoke. "Mr. Cole, are you suggesting this project continue under your direction?" Daniel shook his head. "Not unless we're willing to uphold its purpose. If this becomes a press machine, I'll step down." Another silence. This time, it carried weight, real consideration. The chairman nodded once. "We'll deliberate. You'll have our decision by week's end." Daniel inclined his head, gathered his notes, and walked out without another word. That night, across the city, in a modest walk-up in Queens, Lily sat on the edge of her couch, folding a worn t-shirt as the TV murmured in the background. Her son was playing quietly on the rug. The newscaster's voice cut through the silence. In a bold moment during today's closed-door board meeting, Daniel Cole, son of Donovan Holdings' founder, defended former employee Lily Harper, who was previously dismissed for feeding a hungry child. A video clip played. Daniel's voice echoed into her apartment. "She was never a tool, she was the compass." Lily froze. The shirt slipped from her fingers. She sat back slowly, hands resting in her lap, heart thudding in her chest. She hadn't spoken to Daniel since she walked away. She had locked that chapter in a box and buried it. But now she saw the truth. He had stood in front of people who could fire him, strip him of everything, and he had chosen her, not for publicity, not for guilt, because he believed in her. Her son toddled in, dragging a toy truck across the floor. "Mommy, look!" But Lily could barely hear him over the sudden flood of emotion. Her throat tightened, because in that moment, Lily realized something she had tried to avoid. Maybe Daniel had lied, but maybe he had also grown. And maybe so had she. The opening day of the first official community table branch dawned bright, with sunshine filtering through the clean glass windows of the new location in Harlem. Rows of chairs lined the sidewalk. Balloons fluttered in soft spring wind. Press tents were stationed, cameras ready, but strangely, no one knew who would be speaking. Daniel stood near the entrance, hands in his pockets, watching volunteers set up the last trays of food. He had sent one final instruction the night before. No media questions, no photos of Lily, no PR spin. This wasn't about boosting stock prices, this was about people. He glanced at the crowd gathering. Journalists shifted awkwardly, sensing something different in the air. A soft murmur went through the guests. And then she appeared. Lily Harper walked down the sidewalk in a simple blue dress, hair loose, face calm but serious. She moved toward the stage as if she'd always belonged there. Some volunteers recognized her immediately, their eyes lit up. Daniel stared, stunned. She hadn't told him she was coming. Lily stepped onto the small platform, took the microphone without ceremony, and looked out over the crowd. "I'm not here because of a paycheck," she said, her voice clear, unwavering. "I'm here because this matters." A hush fell. She looked down for a moment, gathering herself, then back up. "Not long ago I got fired from a restaurant for giving a hungry child a bowl of soup. I didn't do it because I wanted thanks. I didn't expect anyone to see. But someone did. And that someone reminded me that the smallest things we do for each other, they ripple." She turned to Daniel, locking eyes with him. He saw me, and I didn't know who he really was. But now I do, and he's not just the heir to a company. He's someone who listened, who changed, who let people like me lead. Daniel stepped forward, gently taking the mic. "I didn't come here to build a business," he said, scanning the faces. "I came to find out what we had forgotten, and I found her." He gestured toward Lily, then the audience. "This project isn't about saving people, it's about standing beside them, letting them rise." Applause broke slowly, then grew. People stood. A woman wiped her eyes. A man clapped with both hands over his heart. No PR campaign could create a moment like that. Lily stepped off the stage. Daniel followed. They stood side by side near the front door as the first families entered, children peeking in curiously. A little boy reached for Lily's hand. She bent and smiled. Daniel whispered, "You didn't have to come back." She looked at him. "You made space. You didn't fill it with noise?" He nodded. "I'm not trying to be the story anymore." She smiled faintly. "Good, because now it's our story." And just like that, the past began to fade, not erased, but forgiven, and something new, something stronger took its place. Winter in New York had arrived gently, like a soft breath over the city's shoulders. Snow brushed the rooftops and settled on windowsills, but inside the walls of the community table, warmth pulsed like a heartbeat. What had begun as a single experiment in compassion had blossomed into something far bigger. There were now 5 locations across the city, each built on the same principles: dignity, access, empathy. No one was turned away. Everyone gave what they could and received what they needed. Lily stood in the kitchen of the new Bronx location, helping a young volunteer stack canned goods for donation bags. Her leadership was no longer questioned. She was not just the heart of the project, she was its face, its soul, and its steady flame. Daniel had made his own choice too. After months of reflection and internal debate, he had walked into a Donovan Holdings board meeting and turned down a promotion to president. "I'll be stepping away from executive leadership," he told the room, "to focus on something that matters more to me than profit margins. People." He'd never felt more certain of anything. Now, he and Lily ran the community table together, co-directors of a growing movement. They still disagreed at times. Lily argued for more kid-friendly menu options. Daniel insisted on stronger sourcing policies. But they always found their way back to the same truth. Their mission wasn't about food. It was about family. On the last Friday of the year, the city breathed a little softer as warm lights blinked across frozen windows and footsteps crunched on salted sidewalks. At the heart of it all, the community table was hosting its first citywide gratitude night, a celebration of everything they had built together. Families, volunteers, and community members from all 5 locations came, in bundled coats and hopeful smiles. The venue was a former library that had been lovingly transformed into an event space, where once shelves held dusty encyclopedias, now folding chairs lined up beneath string lights that draped in lazy arcs from beam to beam. Golden halos shimmered over long communal tables, decorated with handwritten place cards and paper snow pieces made from winter pine cones and paper snowflakes cut by local school kids. Children ran between rows of chairs with laughter echoing, while servers moved carefully through the crowd, balancing trays of warm food, chili, rolls, baked mac and cheese, steaming cider. Laughter mixed with clinks of dishes and gentle music hummed from a small speaker near the back wall. Lily stood near the stage, wearing a soft emerald dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She was radiant, not because of the dress, but because of the look in her eyes. She was fully present, fully alive. She watched Daniel mingle through the crowd, helping an elderly man find a seat, high-fiving kids, laughing with volunteers, and catching crumbs from a toddler's cookie like it was the most natural thing in the world. For a moment, Lily let herself exhale. Everything had come together. The risk, the heartbreak, the waiting. It had all led to this, something good, something real. Just before the speeches began, a quiet shift stirred at the back of the room. Conversations hushed slightly, turning toward the stage. A boy about 10 walked slowly up the steps, holding a bouquet of bright yellow daisies. Behind him came a woman, gentle hands resting on his shoulders, guiding but not leading. Lily's eyes widened, her breath caught. It was him, the same boy from that cold night outside Riverstone Grill, now taller, filled out with life, his jacket clean and zipped, his cheeks round and full of color. The timid hunger that once haunted his eyes had been replaced by something bold, something mischievous. He smiled wide as he reached her. "These are for you," he said, shy but steady. "My new mom said I could thank the person who gave me the best meal I ever had." Lily knelt instinctively, taking the flowers in trembling hands. Her eyes welled up. "You remember that night?" "Always," he said. "It was the first time someone looked at me like I mattered." She pulled him into a hug, holding tight as tears streamed silently down her cheeks. The boy didn't pull away. He held on too. When she finally stood, Daniel had joined her, his eyes glistening. "He found a home," she whispered, glancing back toward the woman who stood smiling proudly from a distance. Daniel nodded. Then slowly he reached into the inner pocket of his coat and pulled out a small silver key attached to a leather tag. No words, just the engraved shape of a house. Lily looked at it, puzzled. "What's this?" Daniel handed it to her. "I thought we might want a space of our own, too," he said softly. "Not just for now, for building something long-term." Her fingers closed around the key. "It's a small place. Upstate. Enough rooms for guests, enough windows for light." She was speechless. "You gave a boy a meal," he continued, voice trembling. "You gave me a reason to be better." Her lips parted, but he was already dropping to one knee. Not with a ring, but with a promise. "Let's build this home. Together. With your son. With anyone else who needs one." Tears spilled over. Lily dropped to her knees beside him, clutching the key to her chest, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered through her sobs. "Yes." 3 weeks later, beneath a soft curtain of falling snow, they stood at the edge of a gentle hill just outside Beacon, New York. The house was modest, 2 stories, wood-paneled, a porch that wrapped around like arms. Inside, lights glowed warmly, and the smell of fresh paint still clung to the walls. Daniel opened the door and stepped aside. Lily entered first, her son just behind, clutching her hand tightly. He let go to run from room to room, laughing, She turned in a slow circle, taking it in. Bare walls, open shelves, floors waiting for rugs and messy socks. And possibility. Daniel stepped beside her, took her hand. "This," he said, smiling, "is where our next chapter begins." They stood in the doorway as snow danced around them and sunlight spilled across the wooden floor. No longer strangers, no longer broken, just three people, one key, and a life they were finally ready to live. Thank you for joining us on this heartwarming journey of redemption, kindness, and the unexpected family that grew from one small act of compassion. If this story stirred something in your heart, made you believe once again in second chances and the quiet power of doing what's right, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. We bring you true-to-the-heart tales every week, stories that remind us that sometimes hope walks in when we least expect it, and that love, in its purest form, can start with a single meal. Got a story like this in your life? Tell us in the comments. We read every one. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment that just might change your day or your heart. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and keep believing. Soul-stirring stories.